Since its creation in 1947, the CIA has carried out covert operations around the world, from overthrowing governments and abducting suspected enemies to operating secret prisons and committing acts of torture, including waterboarding. But after decades of investigations and controversy and public scrutiny, has the agency really changed? This week in UpFront, I'll be asking that question and more to former CIA officer turned whistleblower, John Kiriakou. John Kiriakou, thank you so much for joining me on UpFront.
Pleasure's mine. Thanks for the invitation.
So your story's a fascinating one to me. You were studying at George Washington University?
Yes.
Then you get approached by a professor
Yes.
who happens to be a recruiter for the CIA, and suddenly your whole career trajectory changes.
My whole life.
First of all, what persuaded you to join?
Well, I came from an immigrant family. All four of my grandparents emigrated to the United States from the island of Rhodes in Greece, which at the time was under Italian occupation and had just come out from under Ottoman occupation. And so, to hear my grandfather tell it, Franklin Roosevelt was standing there at Ellis Island to welcome him into the country and give him a passport and give him a job. We had a framed picture of Franklin Roosevelt on the TV until my grandfather died. So he always instilled in us, all four of my grandparents instilled in us this sense that we had to give back because the country had been so good to us. And so I only considered public service. I was thinking, I'll end up in the Foreign Service or on Capitol Hill. And then this professor approached me in graduate school, and the next thing I knew, I was
an
in
offer
the
you
CIA.
couldn't refuse?
Yeah, something like that. To tell you the truth, I wanted to see the world, and this sounded like a good way to do it.
You've done some pretty big things since you've joined. I mean, you helped
Yeah.
capture Abu Zubaydah.
I did.
Who, of course, was the first CIA detainee post 9/11.
That's right.
Someone who seems to be connected to the 9/11 attacks and all kinds
We
of
thought
ways.
he was.
Yeah.
In retrospect, he wasn't. He was a bad guy at the time.
Yeah.
We believed he was the number 3 in Al-Qaeda. He wasn't the number 3, but he was something of a logistician for Al-Qaeda in that he created what was called the House of Martyrs, the Al-Qaeda safe house in Peshawar, Pakistan. Yeah. He founded and staffed Al-Qaeda's 2 training camps in Helmand province and Kandahar province in southern Afghanistan. And this is even more important, if you wanted to go to Afghanistan to make jihad, he would get you in.
Gotcha.
If you were tired of the fight and you wanted to go home, he would get you a fake passport, he would book you a ticket, and he would get you home. So he was instrumental in sort of the day-to-day operations of Al-Qaeda, but he was not one of the planners of 9/11. We were wrong about that. And he was definitely not the number 3.
And yet he still remains.
And yet he still remains at Guantanamo. For 24 years, he's been in American custody. I'm ashamed that I had anything to do with it. And this
But not
is
just
a
the
guy,
custody. I want to, let's stay there for a
it's
second.
worse than just custody.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
torture.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about torture, that could be lots of things. But
Sure.
the thing that was very big in the public discourse and human rights groups were speaking out against was waterboarding.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought it up that way, because a lot of the approved so-called enhanced interrogation techniques were not torture. If I grab you by the shirt and I say, hey, answer my questions, that's not torture.
Is that enhanced interrogation?
Yeah, that was the entry-level enhanced interrogation technique called the attention grab or attention grasp. That's not torture. But, we get to waterboarding, we get to sleep deprivation, we get to the cold cell, and then we get to a whole lot of things that were never approved by the Justice Department. That was torture.
For you, enhanced interrogation's okay, torture's not, and there's a distinction between the two. Where does sleep deprivation fall on that? For you?
Oh, I think sleep deprivation was worse than waterboarding. We killed people with sleep deprivation. The American Psychological Association says that for people suffering from sleep deprivation, they begin to lose their minds at day 7 with no sleep. They begin to die of organ failure at day 9 with no sleep. The CIA was authorized to keep people awake for up to 12 days. Wow. We killed people. And when I say sleep deprivation, I mean you're chained to an eye bolt in the ceiling, so you can't sit or lay or get comfortable or support your own weight. You have to stand for 12 days.
Let's take the ethical piece away for just a moment, just for one moment.
Sure.
Is the information even credible?
See, that's really the $64,000 question. The answer is no. Listen, people are going to tell you anything that they think you want to hear to get you to stop torturing them. John McCain used to tell this story about when he was being tortured in North Vietnam. And they would always start with the names of the people in your unit. And they would beat him senseless. And what he would do just to get them to stop torturing him was to give them the names of the members of the Green Bay Packers offensive line. They were just names.
Yeah.
And then they would finally stop torturing him. There's something called the ticking time bomb scenario. We see it in movies all the time.
Yeah,
you
the
see
Jack
in
Bauer 24.
The Jack Bauer thing.
That's
exactly.
that's the best argument, right?
It is. That's the best argument.
If the bomb is going,
exactly.
We got to do something to stop it.
But the thing that they won't tell you is that that never happens in real life.
Why?
What if it is nonsense? What if it is real? It's going to take months to figure out what this information actually means. Teams of analysts are going to be poring over it. By then, the bomb's long gone off. Yeah, it just doesn't happen in real life.
So, if it's not ethical, if it's not legal, and if it doesn't work, this seems like a pretty compelling argument for not doing it. And these are some pretty smart people.
Sure.
Why are you the lone voice in the room sometimes, or one of the few voices?
I believe that they were overwhelmed by feelings of guilt. 9/11 was the worst intelligence failure in the history of the Republic. Worse, far worse than Pearl Harbor. 3,000 Americans died on the same morning because we didn't do our jobs. And so there was this feeling that we had to exact revenge. I'll give you another example. Like everybody in the building, I volunteered like every day, over and over. You got to send me, you got to send me, you got to send me. Finally, they're like, all right, stop. We'll send you to Pakistan. I said, great. What do you want me to do there? I want you to be chief of counterterrorism ops. I said, great. When do you want me to go? Tomorrow. Done. So my girlfriend met me at my apartment, packed up all my stuff, was going to go to the airport the next day, and I decided to stop at headquarters first because I wanted to say goodbye. I was thinking in the back of my mind, not everybody's going to make it home.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going to happen out there, so I'm going to go say goodbye to everybody. And I worked for a guy. He was a very elegant, very bright guy, always with the $1,000 suits. We always joked that he really belonged in the State Department. He would have been sort of the stereotypical ambassador.
Yeah.
And he gave me a hug and wished me best of luck. And when he leaned in, he whispered to me, "Kill them all."
Wow.
And I said, "Really, John?" His name was John as well. I said, "We're already there?" And he backs up and he's holding my shoulders and he says, "Kill them all." But that was typical of the leadership at the CIA. Like, well, we can't bring back these 3,000 people, but we sure can kill a lot of the bad guys. And that's what they set out to do.
And when you saw people coloring outside of the lines, your first response isn't to leave. Your first response isn't to walk away. It's to say something.
Oh, yeah. I said something. And I'll tell you where it started. The night that we captured Abu Zubaydah, we captured also many dozens, I'm not allowed to say the number, but dozens upon dozens of lower-level al-Qaeda fighters, plus 3 or 4 like serious mid-level bad guys. And we captured so many that we had to bring them to our safe house to interrogate them and to process them. The FBI was there to process them, mug shots and fingerprints and all that stuff. But in shifts, we could only handle 10 at a time. So we're there, 48 hours, just bringing people in shifts. Well, there was this one idiot working for me. And when the first shift of prisoners was coming in, they all had hoods on. And I said, "Why do they have hoods on?" And he said, "I don't want them to see our faces." I said, "Are you seriously telling me that you have never read the Geneva Convention? You cannot put hoods on them. That is a war crime." I said, "Take the hoods off." And he says, "Wait, if you take the hoods off, I'm reporting you to headquarters." I said, "Oh, I'm already reporting you to headquarters. You've committed a war crime, and we have to report it to Congress."
So pause right there, because that's a great moment to think about. Is it we don't know the Geneva Conventions, or is it we don't care?
We didn't care about the Geneva Convention because Vice President Cheney had said they are non-state combatants, so they don't get the Geneva Convention. The problem is no court ever said that they can't get protections of the Geneva Convention. Yeah. So he took the hoods off, and we reported each other to headquarters, and I got reprimanded.
So he won.
Yeah. And I realized then, like, okay, this is how they want to play it.
So once you realize that you're not going to win the argument by going up the chain of command or by following the rules,
right?
How far were you prepared to go? Were you prepared to go to prison for this?
No, not initially. No. In the end, absolutely yes. I was standing alone. I had to lay down my marker, but I was perfectly willing at the time to make my complaints internally. I have a friend. We're still friends. He was the consummate overachiever. We worked together at the CIA. Plus, he was a brigadier general in the Army Reserve and a psychiatrist. And he said, "I know, right?" And he said to me one day, "Hey, buddy, you know they call you the human rights guy behind your back." And I said, "Yeah, I know."
I love that it's like a negative
it's
moniker.
An insult.
Yeah. The human rights guy.
And he said, "You know that's not a compliment." And I said, "Steve, I'm not afraid of them." I said, "I'm right and they're wrong."
Let's turn to Iran, specifically the U.S. war in Iran. You've seen firsthand how intelligence is assessed and used inside of government. Mm-hmm. The Trump administration has offered shifting justifications for the war, from supporting the Iranian people, regime change, then there's this imminent nuclear threat that we have to stop. Give me the real deal here. How did the United States reach the decision to go to war?
Oh yeah, because the Israelis asked us to. It really is as simple as that. Starting in the 1980s, when Ronald Reagan was the president, literally every single Israeli prime minister that came to the United States asked whomever happened to be president, "Please bomb Iran, please bomb Iran, please bomb Iran." Every president. And every president said no until this one. And it's because for the Israelis, Iran is an existential threat, just like Saddam Hussein's Iraq was an existential threat, and Muammar Gaddafi was an existential threat, and Hezbollah, and ISIS, and Hafez al-Assad, and Bashar al-Assad, and all these different existential threats. And so they've worked hard over the decades to get the United States to do their dirty work for them.
So why now? I mean, we see this with lots of stuff. I mean, every U.S. president since the Clinton era has been asked to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Right. And everyone else signs a waiver until you get to Trump.
That's exactly right.
You know, Trump seems to be breaking a lot of streaks when it comes to the Middle East.
Yes.
Why does he decide to do what no other president since Reagan?
Yes, I think for two reasons.
Yeah.
Number one, I think he's weak. When it comes right down to it, I think he's weak. And I think he is...
What does weak mean?
Politically weak in that he is susceptible to pressure from Benjamin Netanyahu.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, he has taken hundreds of millions of dollars from pro-Israel billionaires, from the likes of Miriam Adelson and her husband Sheldon Adelson. Not to these numbers.
Okay.
No. Trump is unusual. He stands alone with the amount of money that he's taken. And I think that the money, coupled with just a political weakness, caused him to move the embassy, caused him to invade Iran. Another thing too, and this is a story that's not really out there. I mean, it's been reported, but nobody paid attention to it. The traitor Jonathan Pollard was released after 30 years in prison. I think he's lucky, very lucky, that he got only 30 years in prison. He stole top secret information from the American government. He was an analyst at the Department of the Navy. He gave it to the Israelis. The Israelis traded it to the Soviet Union in exchange for a plane load of refuseniks, Russian Jews allowed to emigrate to Israel. Okay, so he got caught. He was convicted of espionage. President Reagan and Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger called it the gravest incident of espionage in modern American history since the Rosenbergs. And he did his 30 years. So he got out. And Miriam Adelson sent a private jet to pick him up at the prison. They flew him to Israel. He was met there by Benjamin Netanyahu himself. When he got off the plane, he kissed the ground. He was given Israeli citizenship. And then the American ambassador to Israel, Ambassador Huckabee, welcomed him to the American embassy for a meeting. What kind of administration is this? When you welcome a traitor who did grave damage to the national security, you welcome him like a conquering hero into the American embassy? And then when you go to the American embassy, which shouldn't be in Jerusalem, because the deal was that it would be moved to Jerusalem when the Arab-Israeli peace treaty is signed and the dispute is settled.
I want to turn to some domestic matters for a moment. Under Trump's second administration, we've seen increasingly aggressive ICE raids. We've seen the fatal shooting of civilians, including U.S. citizens, during operations. Government agencies are increasingly relying on tech firms. I'm thinking about groups that do AI-powered surveillance. The data analytics firm Palantir has become central to ICE operations over the past few years. From your experience, do you see surveillance and targeting methods used against foreign adversaries being adopted in domestic immigration enforcement? Because that wasn't the original intent.
Oh yeah, it's worse than that. It's not just against foreign adversaries or people who may or may not be in the country without documentation. I happened to be in Sweden last week, and the Swedish government has just signed a contract with Palantir to allow Palantir free rein in the Swedish Defense Ministry. We should add, too, for viewers that don't know, Palantir is quite literally a creation of the CIA. The CIA went to Congress and asked for a waiver, allowing the CIA to invest in tech startups. Can you imagine this?
I don't mean to laugh. It's so absurd, it sounds like something...
Like I'm making it up out of thin air, because it sounds crazy.
Or satirical even. It doesn't sound like a legitimate possibility within the context of both a democratic society and a society that has...
And it was illegal for 225 years.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't.
Until it wasn't.
And so the CIA was the very first investor in Palantir. It invested $15 million in Palantir, which is now not just a multi-billion-dollar, gargantuan heavyweight in tech and in data consumption, absorption, however you want to call it. It's the leading company in the world in AI and electronic surveillance. And so, to answer your question, yes, AI being used by Palantir is being targeted against Americans, or against, more appropriately, U.S. persons, which is American citizens and anybody in the country on a green card. But it's also being used against our enemies overseas and against our allies overseas.
One of the jobs of intelligence agencies is to be able to spot the warning signs of fascism and authoritarianism, not just at the end, but as it kind of bubbles up from the surface. They would see the erosion of democratic institutions, the politicization of law enforcement, the use of state power against perceived threats. I mean,
the breakdown of the rule of law.
Yeah. Given that, and your expertise in this, is the United States headed in that direction?
I hate to say yes. I think it is. I think we should all be genuinely worried. And I want to take a swipe at the Democrats for this too, because they have just accepted it from the very beginning. We've got this duopoly. Two supposedly separate opposing parties that really aren't. They're just two sides of the same coin. And they just trade power and authority back and forth. The Democrats have their turn, and then the Republicans have their turn, and sometimes it's split, and sometimes it's not. But have you ever known a leader of either party to give back any of this authority? And then when you've got a Supreme Court that says quite literally that the President of the United States can do anything he wants, literally anything he wants, and cannot be charged with a crime, then that's the breakdown of the rule of law. I'm not speaking specifically about Donald Trump. What a lot of Americans don't remember is Barack Obama murdering American citizens who had never been charged with a crime. But
Say what you mean by that.
Anwar al-Awlaki was an American citizen born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who self-radicalized and became the spokesman for Al-Qaeda. He had never committed a crime against the United States. He became a bad guy, and we didn't like his politics, but he was never charged with any crime. He was never even accused of any crime against the United States. But we blew him up like to smithereens with a drone. And then a week later, just for good measure, we blew up his 16-year-old son and 16-year-old nephew while they sat at a cafe drinking tea. Children, never charged with a crime. But we didn't like that family or its politics. In fact, just after the killing of Awlaki and essentially the remainder of his family, Senator Rand Paul, a Republican from Kentucky, asked Attorney General Eric Holder, is it legal for the President of the United States to kill an American citizen who has not been charged with a crime on American soil? Rand Paul wanted an answer. Is it legal for the President to murder an American citizen on U.S. soil, even if that citizen has not been charged with a crime? Yes. Well, the Democrats didn't concede that authority. So now Donald Trump can, sell, his version of Bitcoin or whatever it is and make literally $2 billion last year and enrich himself and enrich his family. You think the Democrats are going to change the law? They're not going to change the law. They're going to profit from it.
On a slightly lighter note, you've amassed a pretty amazing online following. People love you.
How did that happen? It happened quite literally overnight.
It's the natural progression, GW, CIA, Abu Zubaydah.
I walked
online.
I walked here to come to this interview. I walked 14 blocks, and I was stopped 5 times for selfies.
Wow.
In New York, where people don't stop people.
Yeah, that's, I think, the literal opposite of CIA life.
Yeah, you can say that.
People are drawn to it, though. They love the stories. They also love the way you challenge power. They love the way
I've got nothing to lose. What are they going to do, arrest me? They already did.
Why is that so important to you now?
It's kind of a complicated answer. At first, the whole thing was about waterboarding and these enhanced interrogation techniques. I convinced myself that I was right and they were wrong, right? And I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the rule of law. Either we're going to be the good guys or we're not. But we can't pretend to be the good guys. We are supposed to be a shining beacon of hope for human rights and civil liberties. But we're not. I want us to be. But we can't pretend that we're this, this providentially created entity that can give hope to the rest of the world when we're not. We invade countries willy-nilly all the time. We don't respect human rights. We murder people on a grand scale. We don't respect our own people. We're the most over-criminalized country on the planet. In the United States, we have 5% of the world's population. We have 25% of the world's prison population. That's not normal. That's not something that we should aspire to. And so it started for me with human rights, and it became something much bigger. And then they insisted on imprisoning me, and they were stuck at 45 years in prison. I said, I'm not going to do 45 minutes. And I thought to myself, you know what? I have nothing to lose, so I'm going to go to the mat, and I'm going to fight them. I was blessed that I had great lawyers, and I ended up taking a plea for 30 months, of which I would do 23 months. And it made me a martyr. And I thought, you know what? This is a once-in-a-lifetime, unique opportunity to do good for the American people and for the human rights that I've always believed in. And so I decided that I am right and they are wrong. And so they tried to silence me. They didn't know me at all.
At all. Mm-hmm. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having the conversation.
Absolutely.